When Ethan Miller was 10 years old, he believed his father could do anything. His father, Jack, was strong, hard-working, and always seemed to know the right answer. Every Saturday afternoon, they played baseball together in the small park near their house. Ethan loved those days. He loved the sound of the ball hitting the glove, the smell of fresh grass, and most of all, the time he spent with his father. Jack worked long hours as a mechanic, but no matter how tired he was, he always made time for Ethan. "One day you'll throw faster than me," Jack often said with a smile. Ethan would laugh and say, "Never." Those moments became Ethan's favorite memories. As the years passed, life began to change. When Ethan became a teenager, school became more demanding. He made new friends, joined sports teams, and spent more time away from home. At first, nothing seemed different. But little by little, the Saturday baseball games became less frequent. Sometimes Ethan was busy. Sometimes he simply preferred spending time with friends. Jack never complained. He always smiled and said, "Maybe next weekend." Yet each time, he seemed a little disappointed. Ethan noticed it but did not think much about it. He assumed there would always be another weekend. By the time Ethan turned 17, he rarely played baseball at all. His dream was to earn a scholarship and attend a good university. He worked hard and focused on his future. Jack was proud of him and supported every goal. Still, there was a growing distance between them. They lived in the same house, but their conversations became shorter. Sometimes entire days passed with only a few words exchanged. One evening, Jack stood in the kitchen holding 2 baseball gloves. "Beautiful weather tomorrow," he said. "Want to go to the park?" Ethan looked up from his laptop. "Sorry, Dad. I have too much studying." Jack nodded. "Maybe next week." Ethan smiled briefly and returned to his work. He did not notice the sadness in his father's eyes. A few months later, Ethan received wonderful news. He had been accepted into a prestigious university several hours away. His family celebrated the achievement. Jack hugged him proudly and told everyone how hard his son had worked. Ethan felt excited about the future. University would be the beginning of a new chapter in his life. Before Ethan left for school, Jack gave him an old baseball. The leather was worn, and several signatures covered its surface. "Remember this?" Jack asked. Ethan smiled. "Of course. We used it for years." Jack nodded. "Keep it." Ethan thanked him and packed it in a box with his belongings. At university, life moved quickly. New classes, new friends, and new responsibilities filled every day. Ethan called home occasionally, but the conversations were usually brief. Jack always asked how school was going. Ethan always promised to visit soon. Yet weeks became months, and months became years. During holidays, Ethan often stayed on campus to study or work. He convinced himself he would spend more time with his family later. After graduation, Ethan found an excellent job in another city. His career advanced rapidly. He worked hard and achieved many goals. From the outside, his life looked successful. However, his relationship with his father remained distant. They still spoke on the phone, but not often enough. Then one evening, everything changed. Ethan received a call from his mother. Her voice sounded worried. "Your father is in the hospital," she said quietly. Ethan's heart dropped. What happened? The doctors found a serious heart condition. Ethan immediately drove home. During the entire journey, he kept thinking about all the times he had postponed visits and ignored invitations. When he arrived at the hospital, Jack looked smaller than Ethan remembered. The strong man who had once seemed invincible now appeared tired and fragile. Yet when Jack saw his son, he smiled. "You made it," he said. Ethan sat beside the bed and tried to hide his emotions. Over the next several days, he stayed with his family. The doctors explained that Jack needed surgery. The procedure carried risks, but it offered the best chance for recovery. The night before the operation, Ethan and his father sat together in the hospital room. For a long time, neither spoke. Finally, Jack looked out the window and said softly, "Do you remember the park?" Ethan nodded. "Of course." Jack smiled. "Those were good days." Ethan felt a lump in his throat. "They were my favorite days too." Jack turned toward him. "I always hoped we'd play one more game." Ethan looked down at the floor. Regret flooded through him. He remembered every invitation he had declined and every promise he had postponed. "I'm sorry, Dad," he whispered. "For what?" "For being too busy. For not making time." Jack shook his head gently. "Life gets busy, son. I understand." But Ethan knew he would never forgive himself if he lost the chance to say what truly mattered. Tears filled his eyes. "You were always there for me. Every game, every practice, every problem. I should have been there for you too." Jack smiled warmly. "You being here now means everything." The next morning, Jack underwent surgery. The hours felt endless. Ethan sat in the waiting room thinking about childhood memories. He remembered learning to throw a baseball. He remembered his father's encouragement after every mistake. He remembered laughter, advice, and countless small acts of love that he had taken for granted. Finally, the surgeon appeared. The operation had been successful. Relief washed over the entire family. Recovery was slow, but Jack gradually regained his strength. Several months later, on a bright Saturday afternoon, Ethan arrived at his parents' house carrying 2 baseball gloves. Jack looked surprised. "What are those for?" Ethan smiled. "I think we have a game to finish." Together they drove to the same park they had visited years earlier. The field looked smaller now, but the memories remained the same. At first, they threw the ball gently. Jack was still recovering and could not move as quickly as before. But neither of them cared. The game was not about winning. It was about being together. As the sun began setting, Ethan caught a ball and looked at his father. "You know," he said. "You were right." Jack laughed. "About what?" "One day I did throw faster than you." Jack pretended to look offended. Then both of them laughed. It was the kind of laughter that comes from years of shared memories. Before leaving the park, Ethan reached into his bag and removed the old baseball Jack had given him years earlier. He handed it back. "I think this belongs to both of us." Jack turned the ball in his hands and smiled. Years later, Ethan often reflected on that day. He learned an important lesson that he shared with his own children. Success, money, and achievements are important, but time is more valuable than all of them. The people we love will not always be there waiting for another weekend. Sometimes the greatest gift we can give is simply our presence. Ethan was grateful he learned that lesson before it was too late. And every Saturday, no matter how busy life became, he made time for the people who mattered most.